Lecture number 15. Organization for International Standardization. Plan of the lecture. The first, International Standardization. The second, International Organizations for Standardization. The first, National Organizations for the Standardization of Various Countries. The first, International Standardization. International standardization in which participation is open to the relevant authorities of all countries. The main purpose of international standards is to create a unified methodological framework at the international level for developing new and improving existing quality systems and their certification. Goals of international standardization: convergence of the quality level of products manufactured in different countries, ensuring the interchangeability of elements of complex products, assistance in international trade, promote mutual exchange of scientific and technical information, and accelerate scientific and technological progress. The second, international organizations for standardization. International Organization for Standardization, ISO. ISO International Organization started functioning on February 23, 1947 as a voluntary non-governmental organization. It was established on the basis of an agreement reached at a meeting in London in 1946 between representatives of the 25 industrialized countries to create an organization with the authority to coordinate the development of various industrial standards at the international level and to carry out the procedure for their adoption as international standards. The International Electrotechnical Commission (IEC). The IEC organization, established in 1936, is a voluntary non-governmental organization. Its activities are mainly related to the standardization of physical characteristics of the electrical and electronic equipment. IEC focuses on issues such as electrical measurements, testing, disposal, and safety of electrical and electronic equipment. IEC members are national organizations, committees for the standardization of technologies in their respective industries, representing the interests of their countries in the field of international standardization. The International Telecommunication Union (ITU) is an international intergovernmental organization in the field of telecommunication standardization. The organization unites more than 500 governmental and non-governmental organizations. It consists of the telephone, telecommunications, and the postal ministries, departments, and agencies of different countries, as well as organizations that supply equipment for providing telecommunication services. The main task of the ITU is to coordinate the development of internationally harmonized rules and recommendations for the construction and use of global television networks and their services. In 1947, ITU has been granted the status of the Specialized Agency of the United Nations. United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, UNECE, United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, the United Nations Economic and Social Council was established in 1947. World Trade Organization, WTO. The World Trade Organization was established in 1995 on the basis of the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. Regional Organizations for Standardization. European Organization for Standardization. The goal of the European Organization for Standardization is to promote trade development by developing European standards and to improve the quality and competitiveness of the goods and the services through uniform application of the international standards ISO and IEC in all member countries of the European Organization for Standardization. It consists of 28 countries in Western, Central, and Southern Europe, as well as Iceland, Norway, and Sweden, which are members of the EU, European Union, and the EFTA, European Free Trade Association. Priority items of EN are complex technical goods, equipment, aviation, automobiles components, for example for lifting mechanisms, as well as process construction work, cutting, welding, and others enterprises too. The organizational structure of European Organization for Standardization is somewhat similar to that of ISO. It consists of the General Assembly, the Administrative Council, the Certification Management Committee, and the Certification Committees subordinate to it, the Technical Bureau, with technical committees and the program committees, construction, safety equipment of the mobiles. European Electrotechnical Committee for Standardization. It was created in 1971 when the European Committee for the Coordination of Electrotechnical Standards of the EFTA member states and the European Committee for the Coordination of Electrotechnical Standards of the EU member states merged. The main activity is to eliminate technical differences between the national standards of the member countries of the European Electrotechnical Committee for Standardization in order to prevent the emergence of the technical barriers to trade and electrical goods. Regional standards of the European Electrotechnical Committee for Standardization can have three forms: Europe Standard, EN, Euronorm, Document on Harmonization, and the Preliminary Standards, ENV. Scandinavian Organization for Standardization. The purpose of the Inter-Scandinavian Organization for Standardization is to promote the creation of harmonized national standards, to unify the technical requirements of national standards, and to exchange information on standardization in order to avoid duplication. The peculiarity of the Inter-Scandinavian Organization for Standardization is the refusal to develop regional standards. Developed draft documents are accepted as national documents if they are approved by all member countries of the Inter-Scandinavian Organization for Standardization. The developed projects are based on international and/or European standards. Main activities: harmonization of national standards with international and European standards in the field of mechanic and machine tool construction, workplace safety, operational reliability and the safety of firefighting equipment. Pan-American Committee for Standardization. The goal of the Pan-American Committee for Standardization is to harmonize regional and national standards with the international standards in order to eliminate technical barriers to regional and the international trade. Field of activity: development of regional standards, improvement of the work of the national organizations for standardization of member countries, promotion of standardization. Eurasian Interstate Council for Standardization, Metrology and Certification, and intergovernmental body, the CIS, created in 1993 in accordance with the Agreement on the Implementation of a Coordinated Policy in the field of standardization, metrology, and the certification. For the coordination of work in these areas, recognized by ISO at the Eurasian Council for Standardization, Metrology, and the certification by ISO, Council Resolution 26/1996. One of the results of the activities of the Eurasian Council for Standardization, Metrology, and the certification is development of interstate standards, GOST, which can be changed as national. The working body of the Eurasian Council for Standardization, Metrology and Certification is the Standards Bureau. It consists of a group of experts. In addition, there is a regional information center and the 230 interstate technical communities for standardization. National organizations for standardization of various countries. American National Standards Institute, a non-governmental non-profit organization that coordinates voluntary standardization activities, manages the activities of organizations that develop standards, and decides whether to grant the status of the national standard. The goal of American National Standards Institute is to help solve problems of national significance. Our main activity is to develop national standards for the safety of people, their work, the environment, and the energy saving. These standards contain mandatory requirements. Along with them, the United States has technical regulation approved by government agencies, the Department of Commerce, the Department of Defense, the Federal Food and Drug Safety Administration, and others. National standards are developed by organizations accredited by the American National Standards Institute. British Standards Institution (BSI). It has been operating since 1901 as an independent organization. The purpose of BSI is to develop, adopt, and publish national standards, guide certification and quality management activities, and provide information to stakeholders on national, regional, and international standards, including those of other countries. The total number of existing national standards is more than 20,000. BSI published a directory containing information about companies whose products meet national standards. French Association for Standardization, founded in 1926, it is a non-profit organization that includes more than 6,000 organizations in France. The purpose of French Association for Standardization is to organize, guide, and coordinate standardization activities, develop and adopt national standards, monitor their implementation, and provide information on a wide range of issues with its competence. In addition to standardization, the activities of the French Association for Standardization include certification, metrology, management, and quality control, and since 1987, informing members of the French Association for Standardization about changes in the market, product and brand structure, supply and demand, the nature of consumer preferences, and the consumer requirements for the product. The German Standards Institute. The purpose of the German Standards Institute is to guide and coordinate national standardization activities, develop and adopt national standards, as well as international and regional cooperation, information support in the field of the standardization, certification and quality management. German standards are mostly advisory in nature, but may also become mandatory in areas where federal legislation applies. To provide information to interested parties, the German Standards Institute has established a standards fund with more than 30,000 standards. Japanese Industrial Standards Committee. It has been operating since 1949. It's an advisory body under the Ministry of the Foreign Trade and Industry, subordinate to the Department of Science and Technology. According to the Industrial Standardization Act, there are three categories of standards in Japan: national industrial, industry-specific, and brand-specific. Industry standards specification of national standards. Corporate standards are developed on the basis of national and industry standards. Types of standardization by region coverage. International standardization. Activities to establish rules and the characteristics of the objects which involve countries from different regions of the world. Regional standardization. Activities to establish rules and the characteristics of objects with the participation of countries in a particular region of the world. National standardization. Activities to establish rules and the characteristics of the object within the country.